Good morning, everyone. Today we have a coolant leak on my son's 89 F150 four-wheel drive with the 5-liter V8 and automatic. He had a little boilover issue the other day, and we tracked the coolant leak down to the thermostat housing. I got a flashlight down in there and I could see, thought I saw some drips. Then I got my blacklight flashlight and shine that down there, and sure enough, very green glowing coolant down there all around the thermostat housing, which is right down here at the end of this hose. It looks kind of tight to get to, and we did pull it out and change it, and I must have not got it on quite right because we're going to have to do it a second time here. But I didn't vlog it the first time, so this time we're going to show you the steps to get to that and take it apart. It looks kind of intimidating, but it's really not that bad. And we're going to start by removing draining the coolant, removing the double air intake hoses, the upper radiator hose, and the serpentine belt. Those will be our first steps. And then once I get those three things off, which are quite straightforward, just some screws on these ends, this end, the radiator hose screws, and releasing the tension on the serpentine belt tensioner. After we get that apart, we'll be back. All of the hose clamps on this are held on with a 5/16 inch hex head screw. I use the hand nut driver on them. It takes them off pretty quick. Got my long breaker bar with the 16mm socket on there. We pull it over to the left and release the belt. Alright, there we have the upper radiator hose removed, the air intakes, and exposes the thermostat housing quite well. We're going to have to remove still the two hoses coming out of the water pump. One of them's a little L-shaped hose that goes right over to the thermostat housing. So you've got three more hose clamps down there to remove, and then the two 1/2-inch bolts holding the thermostat housing onto the motor itself. In order to gain a little bit more room, we're going to release the clip off the distributor. Carefully remove that, set that aside out of the way, along with the power clip for the AC compressor. Make this whole area here nice and clear. And then finally, if you look down here, the lower right hand bolt on the thermostat housing is unable to be reached with a socket wrench because it actually sits down behind the water pump housing. So we have to get it from the side here with an open end wrench. And you can't even get a ratcheting wrench on there either. There's not enough clearance behind it. You have to use an open end wrench. So some people have cut a wrench off really short and used that in here, but you can't get a lot of torque on it that way. So what I did, and I'm going to do again, is there's 3 long bolts on the face of this AC mounting plate and 1 nut. So you got 3 bolts and a nut, 9/16 inch heads. You take those 4 things out, and this whole bracket, along with the power steering pump and air conditioning compressor, will just swing aside, and you can get yourself enough room to get a wrench on that bolt. So now I'm going to remove this bracket and set that aside. Alright, the 3 long bolts on the face of the mounting bracket have been removed, along with the stud, or the nut. That allows this to separate from the block. I just pushed it over about 4 inches, and that gives me all the room I need to get down here and put a wrench on that 1/2-inch nut down there. And you can see that they're nice and shiny right now. That's because the last time I had it apart, I replaced them. And of course you have to know that both of them snapped off when I tried to get to them. The top one you can just put a socket ratchet wrench on and access very easily. The bottom one we had to grab from the side with a open end wrench. And both of them snapped off right at the head, leaving the little broken bolts, fortunately, sticking out of the mounting plate. I want to go over real quick with everyone here how we did get those broken bolts out. And before you say anything about heat or anything, we did use PB Blaster on it and the propane torch before we tried to remove them. Heated them up, sprayed them, heated them again, and they still snapped off. They were very rusty and they just snapped right off. But what I did once we had it out and we had the studs exposed, we sprayed it down with the PB Blaster again, heated it up really hot, making sure there's no damage to any rubber components around it. They actually slipped a piece of tin around the distributor to block the heat from coming up and getting too much heat, possibly melting the plastic or damaging the wires inside. So we put a heat shield around the distributor, just a little thing I rigged up out of an old license plate, and that deflected the heat away from the distributor and kept it cool while I was applying the propane torch to those bolts there. And of course on the top one here, there's a temperature sensor plug. I just removed that and set it aside. I had these hoses all off so it was nice and open. There's no rubber or plastic around that could have caught fire. Got it nice and hot. And then used a special Craftsman tool that I've raved about before. These are the broken bolt extractors in different sizes. I don't have a complete set yet, but I've got the 4 here plus this one. I've got 4 more to get. I've got 5 plus this one. Anyway, this one here is the number 2 size right there. And that's all it says on it, but right here it says 5/16 8mm Irwin. This one's Irwin brand, the other ones are all Craftsman. But so you see how it's spiraled and sharp inside of a heavy duty, probably a carbide gripping steel. You push it onto the broken stud and twist it just like you're trying to remove it, and it actually turns and digs in as you twist it more. The more you turn it, the tighter it digs in. And then it bottomed out against the face of the mounting plate, and another just quick little turn, and it's pulled both screws right out. I mean, it was less than 10 minutes of work to get those screws out. So all in all, that was very productive and quick, and nowhere near as scary or big of a deal as I thought it was going to be. We're going to put all this stuff back in the toolbox because we're not going to need it. I've already loosened those up before, so I'm sure they'll come right out again. But if you're doing work on older vehicles or somewhere where you're going to have stuck screws or broken bolts, I'm highly recommending this Craftsman or the Irwin brand of broken bolt extractor kits, along with my other. I've got the regular screw extractors. I've got 2 or 3 different sets of extractors under there. I've got left-hand drill bits, reverse drill bits for drilling out broken bolts. So if you're going to get involved in this, you're going to need to invest some money in some of these specialty tools eventually. I know when I was younger, I used to try and do it without spending any money on tools, and it just made the job so much harder. Alright, we're going to take those 2 bolts now and remove the thermostat cover. Alright, the thermostat is out. Here's the housing in my hand, and I could see when I took it apart it was actually dripping right at the very bottom. And I don't know what I did wrong when I put it together. Perhaps I let the thermostat slide out the bottom a little bit and I didn't get a tight seal. Or I'm thinking actually more than likely the thermostat itself has some metal worn away from corrosion down here on this edge, and it's not making a tight seal against the mounting plate face, because the mounting plate face is perfectly smooth with no wear or corrosion at all. But there's some significant corrosion around the bottom of this outlet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run up to the auto parts store and replace this outlet piece, this cast aluminum piece here. It was, I think I checked the price on it already, it was like $8.50 at the local auto parts store. That and a new gasket, and we will put it back together. Alright, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now. Check out my other stuff on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook.